Hello, hello. Just making sure my sound is working. Hope everyone is doing well. Got 4 people on here. So I'm just going to make sure that you guys can hear me and you can see me okay. If you can hear me and you can see me, just drop me a little note. Let me know that you're here. Let me know that you can see me and that we're all good before I get going. Oh, I've got some yeah, people can hear, people can see. Okay, perfect. So let's get going then. Hi, sound is great. Okay, good. Amazing. So let's just dig right into this. Who am I? So what am I doing here? Why am I the one talking about intuitive eating? My name is Jillian Murphy, for those of you who haven't met me before, who haven't worked with me, who haven't tuned into a webinar, and I am the creator of the Food Freedom Body Love Method. I am a naturopathic doctor by education, and I worked as a naturopath solely for about 10 years. And I currently specifically and only work with women of all shapes and sizes who are struggling with food and struggling to get okay with their bodies. And so what I do is I help women stop feeling crazy around food and start enjoying their bodies. And like I said, I'm the creator of the Food Freedom Body Love Method, which is a method that helps move women, I believe, in a really gentle, inspiring, fun way from feeling really stuck to feeling really good in their bodies and having a really healthy, amazing relationship around food. So if you're here and you want to leave who you are and where you're from, that's amazing. I will come back and check the comment section sort of periodically throughout the evening. So don't think that I'm missing if you have questions or whatever, just leave them and I will definitely come back and check, and I'll circle back to them when I can. So I just want to make sure that we are still all good here. Hang on. Just want to make sure we're all good. Okay, we are. It looks like everybody is doing really well. So like I said, just feel free to leave any questions, any comments, and I will do my absolute best to sort of check back and forth and make sure everybody is doing well. And if you have any questions, I'll be there to help. Okay, back to me. Okay, so what is intuitive eating? I feel like that is sort of like the first and foremost thing we have to talk about, because for so many people, it just seems like this really abstract thing. What is intuitive eating? Basically what it is veering away from the really standard approach that we take to food right now, which is, I don't know how to eat. I don't know enough about nutrition. I don't know what's right for my body. And so I'm going to look to an expert to tell me. I'm going to look to a book or a doctor or a holistic nutritionist or a naturopath, and they're going to know what's right for me. And then they're going to give me a plan. And not only are they going to give me like a general idea about what's healthy and what's good for my body, like a lot of the time it's like women are looking for like a step-by-step plan. Like I can't tell you how many women would come into my naturopathic practice and ask for meal plans, and how many people actually stick with meal plans? Hardly any ever. And yet we continue to search for them. We continue to look for them because of this fundamental belief that we just have no idea how to feed ourselves, right? And so intuitive eating is about shifting that and about saying, we aren't sticking with plans. Why? Because they don't work for us, because we're individuals. And, just because there's an expert who happen to find a way of eating that really sits well with them and that they're happy to stick with for the rest of their life doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, or that it's going to be something that you enjoy, or, is something that you're going to want to put all the energy into. I've seen books that seem really reasonable, or nutritional theories that seem really reasonable, all the way to nutritional theories that are like only eat meat, or like only eat fruit until supper time. Like some of them start to get really extreme, and the more subtle ones, we don't always notice it, but they are telling us what to do and how to do it in a very specific way that is just not that authentic for most people. And so intuitive eating is about learning how to reconnect with your body, because one of the things that I talk about a lot in the Food Freedom Body Love method is that this continually looking to external sources to tell us how to eat and behave disconnects us. And specifically when we're doing it to manipulate our body, so to lose weight, when we're dieting, and dieting is anytime we are behaving in a way that the goal is to lose weight, it 100% cuts us off. It disconnects us from our body's own internal knowing. And so a lot of this process, how is it different? It's encouraging you to get back in touch with your body, right? Instead of being like, you have to eat at 8 a.m. and noon and 3 and 5. It's like, well, when are you hungry? Let's get back in touch with your body. When are you hungry? Let's let your body lead the way, right? So it's basically making you the expert on your own body, which, you are anyway. So you might as well just, go with the flow, right? You might as well take advantage of it and go with it. How does this play into the Food Freedom Body Love method, which is the program that I created? What I will say about this is intuitive eating, which I've got the book right here because I wanted to show you. Intuitive Eating is a book by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich. And so this part of the program, we definitely, delve into intuitive eating in the program. And it's something that, that I, what I'm going to talk about tonight is based on their work. When I do it in the program, it's based on their work. Although having done it for quite a while with women, I kind of have my own take on it. And so there's certain things a few things that I'll talk about tonight, even more so in the program probably, where I just kind of disagree a little bit with them, which is cool, right? Like they've set this amazing foundation. I'm totally leapfrogging off of their work. But more importantly than that, intuitive eating is a really small piece of the Food Freedom Body Love process, believe it or not. We like to think that when we're in a place where we're struggling with our body and we're struggling with food, that food is the problem, but food is typically not the problem. The struggles we're having with food is typically a symptom of a much deeper problem. And so the Food Freedom Body Love method, like where this fits in, this is a really beautiful tool. And it's really helpful to have a tool when you're trying to get back in touch with your body. It's basically a plan for having no plan, and when we're used to being in a diet culture where we're continually given like step by step, this is how to do it. Even when we can't stick with it, there's something comfortable about a plan. And so I love the intuitive eating because it gives us some steps for women who are used to steps, right? We're all used to steps. And yet basically what we're doing is we're taking steps away from having any plan and being able to make present moment decisions. But like I said, the struggle that we tend to have with this is because there's just so much more underneath of the food problem. And that's what the Food Freedom Body Love method is really all about. And the group program is starting on January 22nd. There's 4 more days to register. And it's totally amazing because, anybody can go buy this book. And there are lots of women that have bought the book. There are even lots of therapists who've bought the book and try to work from it. But if you don't really deeply understand the psychology of eating and where our body image issues come from and how they manifest and how they affect the way that we eat, it's very difficult to help yourself or as a therapist, other women move out of this place. And so, I'll get more into it in the program. I don't want to belabor it too much right now, but I've worked with tons of women who have worked with other health coaches who are body positive and into intuitive eating and they can't seem to get anywhere. And they're like, what's the missing piece? And the missing piece is all of the other work that's actually underneath of this that will actually allow you to intuitive eat. So I just want to check in for a minute and see how everyone is doing. Hi, oh my God, from the Philippines. That's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Feel free to leave questions, you guys. I would love if there are any questions, if there's anything that isn't quite sitting right, you guys just let me know. I'm just leaving you a little note here. Feel free to leave questions. Okay, so feel free to leave questions as we go. Perfect. Okay. So let's dig right into it. The 10 tenets of intuitive eating. Okay, so the 10 things are, and we're going to go through them slowly in a minute here. Reject diet mentality, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, feel your fullness, discover satisfaction, cope with your emotions without using food, respect your body, exercise and feel the difference, and gentle nutrition. And the one thing I want to be like super clear about right now is that I'm not in this webinar teaching you how to intuitive eat, right? Like this is big. This is like a big part of the group program. It's a big part of the work that I do. It takes time. It takes time. Like I said, there's always the book. If you're someone who's not into group programs, I also do one-on-one work with women. If you're not into group programs, that's cool. There's the book. But like I said, there's typically a lot more work that I think could be added in the book to help women actually get free. But I can't teach you how to intuitive eat. That takes a long time. What I'm going to be doing is just introducing you to the 10 steps of intuitive eating. You can ask questions about it. We can chat about the 10 steps. But this is basically just like, intro overview. Okay? I can't teach the whole thing. So I just want to make sure I'm really clear about that so you don't feel like I'm glossing over things too quickly. Okay? Step number 1, reject diet mentality. And so the first thing is like, what is diet mentality? Basically diet mentality is anytime that we are in a frame of mind where our thoughts and behaviors are primarily driven by weight loss. So we are very specifically trying to lose weight. And I would go even one step further to say, any thought pattern or behavior or exercise or food plan that would lose all appeal if you weren't promised weight loss at the end of it, right? So it's like, the cabbage soup diet. Would anybody go on a cabbage soup diet at any point in time if someone hadn't promised them weight loss? No, they wouldn't, right? So diet mentality is any time we are in the pursuit of weight loss. And when it comes to intuitive eating, we really have to let it go because number 1, what we have learned about how to maintain our weight and lose weight is predominantly false. And again, this is huge. I can't get into all of this tonight. This is something that I go really big into. We spent an entire week focused on it, if not probably 2 weeks, and we revisit it often, all of the lies we've been taught about weight loss. But the main thing to understand is that when we stay dedicated to losing weight, we stay in very negative, triggering, reactive patterns around food. And so until you get out of diet mentality, it is nearly impossible to eat intuitively because it disconnects you. So this is why so many women, buy this book and they read all the things and then they can't do it. And it's because on some level, their primary goal is still weight loss. And as long as you are pursuing weight loss, it is very difficult to pursue health. Now, does that mean that if you start eating intuitively and moving your body that you could still lose weight? Of course. But the thing is it's not guaranteed. Weight loss is highly unpredictable, right? We can't predict it. Nobody can. There is no research anywhere. And so rejecting diet mentality is fundamental to intuitive eating. When you are disconnected, when you are doing things that you believe will help you lose weight, it keeps you from being able to tune into what your body's really asking for, right? We don't want to listen when we're hungry at 10 a.m. after we've had breakfast because we're trying to lose weight. But if our body's hungry, our body's hungry. And when we don't listen, we trigger a whole cascade of events, right? So rejecting diet mentality is absolutely fundamental. And, it involves rejecting the mentality. It involves throwing out the diet books, the dieter's tools. We talk about that. Why the scale is a lose situation. We talk about that in the program. And we really dig into rejecting diet mentality because this is not an easy one to swallow, right? And women, myself included, typically require lots and lots and lots of information and evidence in order to be able to move past these beliefs that we've had forever. This is a big one. The next one is honoring our hunger. And so this is about understanding that we need to be sure we are feeding ourselves. Like if we are struggling with food, if we are binge eating, if we are reactively eating, if we're having difficulties, one of the first things that we need to do is make sure we're actually ingesting enough calories and carbohydrates a day. Because if we are not, and we are often given really bad information about how much food a female body needs, if we're not eating enough calories and we're not consuming enough carbohydrates, what we do is we trigger this very primal, primitive, biological drive in our body that often causes us to overeat. And so again, we think we have a food problem, but what we really have is a trying to force our bodies to conform to diet mentality rules. Oh, shoot. I'm going to transition to me for a minute. This happens sometimes when I haven't clicked on the slides quickly enough. So I'll get us logged back in, but I'll just talk about that for a minute because my favorite quote was there. And actually what I'll do is I'll just jump on over and check and see how everybody's doing in terms of questions, if there are any questions. Yikes. So Cindy says, yikes. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me? Elaborate on the yikes. I feel like that probably has a lot to do with, sorry, I'm just logging in here. I'm not ignoring you. The idea about letting go of the desire to lose weight. It's a big one and it can be quite triggering for women. But you know what? If I'm getting it wrong, feel free to let me know. Let me just check in here. Just asking if you guys can elaborate a little bit on that yikes comment, or if you have any other questions about rejecting diet mentality, because that's a biggie. It's a big one. And there's a few things, but a lot of women who have tried to do the intuitive eating thing, who have tried to repair their relationship with their body and food and have really struggled with it. When I start working with them or when I get on the phone with them to talk about working together, one of the biggest things they often say is, I just feel like there's a missing piece and I don't know what it is. Like I got all the information, I'm doing my best here, but there's just a missing piece and I don't know what it is. And so much of that missing piece is understanding the false information we've been given about our bodies and weight and health and how all of these things are actually linked or not linked, right? Because we're sort of taught that these things are always inextricably factually linked, and weight and health are intricately, I would say even beyond intricately linked to one and the same. And so this is a really, really, really big piece of the Food Freedom Body Love method, is actually pulling apart a lot of the lies and misinformation that we've been taught. So I just want to click back in here for a sec. Where are we? Okay. A lot of fear in letting go of diet mentality. Oh yeah. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I have known for a long time what I've been doing has been working. Oh my God, I love this. Yeah. Following literally throughout my Weight Watchers books. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm just reading through the comments here, and this is just it. It's like we keep holding on, believing that the next plan, the next program is gonna be the thing that works for us, right? And rejecting diet mentality is all about understanding that if it was going to work, it would have worked by now, you know? And I always say, as scary as it is to let go of some of this stuff, as frightening as it is, you know, most women, when they hear it, they start to feel it in their bones, right? They start to get this feeling like, I don't know what this is going to look like. This is really scary for me. And at the same time, they get this feeling that, oh my God, this might be right. Because I've often had people say to me, you know, this is really out of the box work. And how do you get women in a culture that, you know, in totally a thin is best culture, how do you get women to buy into this idea of letting go of weight loss? And all I can say is the same reason I finally bought into it, because I was so tired of feeling like I was failing all the time. And when I heard this, it was just like a light bulb went on. And I was like, oh my God, aha, this is exactly, you know, this is exactly what I've been looking for. So I'm going to go back to the slides. You guys, you know, if you have more comments or whatever, feel free to hop in there and let me know how it's going, or comments or questions or whatever. Okay. So before we leave Honor Your Hunger, I just want to read this one quote, which is one of my favorites, talking about, you know, the way that we, especially when we're in diet mentality and we're focused on altering our bodies, we often ignore our hunger, right? And so this is one of my favorite quotes. The chronic food deprivation of dieting is a traumatic assault on the body and mind, a nutritional trauma similar to actual starvation, which needs to be remedied with consistent nourishment. And what that means is we're traumatizing ourselves, we're damaging our biological systems, and the best way to start to fix the problem is to start to actually feed ourselves adequately. Enough calories, enough carbohydrates. Next up, number 3, make peace with food. The process of legalizing food, of allowing all foods that exist in the universe onto our plates. It doesn't mean we eat everything in the universe. It doesn't mean we're required to eat everything. It doesn't mean that you have to eat things that make you feel bad. It just means that everything's allowed. And then you get to start making choices. Because in the diet world, so many foods are demonized, right? We live in a world where food is highly moralized. There's like good food and bad food. There's low point food and high point food. There's low inflammatory, you know, like pro-inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods, right? Like rarely is there a food that has not been touched, right? Rarely is there a food that comes to mind. If I say anything from, you know, peanut butter to olive oil to a Twizzler, you know, I can think of bad things that have been said of all 3 of those foods, you know? And so we tend to have these thoughts spiraling in our brains, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but it is very difficult to make objective choices about what food feels like in our body when we're in this constant struggle with food in our brain. I want to eat that, but it's bad. I want to eat this, but I can't eat it with that. You know, it's all about, we have all of these rules in our heads. And so making peace with food is not about saying that every food is nutritionally equivalent or that every food feels nutritionally this or feels physically the same in our bodies. It's about neutralizing our reactions to all foods so that we can make good objective choices. And there's actually like a process to this as well, which is it can be fun. For some women, it can be really triggering. It can be really hard because it's about taking those foods that we've really put up on pedestals, either because they're too delicious and we don't trust ourselves with it, or because they're so bad we don't trust ourselves with it, or they'll just make us fat. So we don't allow ourselves to eat them. There's this process of taking those foods and taking the power away from them. So then you can actually make a good choice for yourself. And I love this quote as well. Call a truce. Stop the food fight. Give yourself unconditional permission to eat. If you tell yourself that you can't or shouldn't have a particular food, it leads to intense feelings of deprivation that build into uncontrollable cravings and often binging. When you finally give in to your forbidden foods, eating will be experienced with such intensity that it usually results in Last Supper overeating and overwhelming guilt. And what Last Supper eating is like that feeling or that process we go through in our mind when we've been on a plan or a program or whatever, and we kind of like quote unquote blow it. And then we're like, okay, I got to get it all in now because this is the last moment I'm going to do this. And then starting tomorrow morning, I'm going to get back on track. That's Last Supper overeating. And again, anytime we're engaging in diet mentality behaviors, we're setting ourselves up for Last Supper behavior. Or I also sometimes call it what the hellitis. Well, like what the hell? I ruined it already. Might as well just like throw it all out the window. Number 4, challenge the food police. So the food police is that like ongoing, never-ending spiral of negative thinking. Or, I mean, it isn't always negative, but it's often negative that's telling you what to eat and how to eat. The food police monitor the unreasonable rules you have around food, rules that dieting have created. And the reason I say unreasonable is because if you really logically take a look at some of the rules you have around food, they often don't really make sense. They often contradict one another. It's often dated, right? So like you learned something when you were in grade 6 about nutrition, and despite the fact that the science has evolved like 7 times since you learned it, you just can't get it out of your mind, right? It's just old info. This voice in your head becomes, when this voice is going on, and we think that this voice, or our culture will sometimes lead us to believe that this voice is healthy, that this voice is us, and it's keeping us on track. But again, when the ulterior motive is weight loss, it's not us. That's not our voice. Our true voice isn't telling us how we screwed up. Our true voice isn't telling us all of the things we've done wrong. Our true intuitive voice isn't fearful or anxious or needing to pre-plan or pull apart all the things we did yesterday. Our intuitive voice is kind, compassionate, and operates in the present moment. And it's factual, it's logical, it's feeling, but in a really pragmatic way. You ate too much. There's no judgment around it. If there's judgment, you're getting into the food police. You're getting into these unreasonable rules. So again, I just want to check in with you guys and see where you're at. How are we doing? I used to think that going on a diet meant that even though the diet wasn't working, at least I was doing something about it. Yeah, I love that. I so love that comment because again, our culture teaches us that like not only is it healthier to be thinner, and if we are of a certain weight, we should be pursuing weight loss, but like even if pursuing weight loss is hurting us, and it's actually causing us to gain weight, which is something we know happens all the time with women who are on diets, that it's just still better to be trying, right? Like even if you're suffering, at least if you're trying, you're doing something that's like socially acceptable and socially palatable, right? It's crazy. So I love that comment because it's so true. The fear of committing to the program means that there's some acceptance. Sorry, my little like thing is in the way. Of my current body, something that I have not done since puberty. Yeah, oh my God, that quote is my life. I love it, Cindy. Yeah, the fear of committing to the program means that there's some acceptance of my current body. Yeah, I mean, so much of this is about accepting our current body. It doesn't mean that we do nothing. Acceptance. Okay, so when we get into the program, one of the things that I often remind women is that deciding to pursue intuitive eating and body love and body acceptance is not about giving up. It's about growing up. It's about moving on. It's about realizing that the tools and tactics that you were taught as a child have not been working, are immature, are keeping you locked into negative patterns and behaviors, and that you are ready to move on and try something new. Is it scary? Yeah. Yes. And there's a lot of work that we do in the beginning of the program to try to help women move through that. Not just at the beginning, through the whole program. The whole program is about learning how to move through this, right? And about what you're going to need to in order to continue to fight that battle, because that battle doesn't end at the end of 8 weeks, right? It's like, we live in a diet culture. This is the world we live in. This is the world we're going to be living in for the foreseeable future. How do you exist in that world? Like, that's what the food freedom body love method is, right? It's about the food freedom body love method is learning how to exist in a diet culture. And so intuitive eating that we're talking about today is one of the tools, but there are so many more that we need to talk about. There's so much more information that we need in order to be able to, like, really truly okay. Part 5 of intuitive eating, feel your fullness. And I don't tend to belabor this too much because, quite honestly, we'll go through some of the tips and tricks for women who are struggling with feeling full, but it's kind of amazing how often that takes care of itself. And again, it's one of those things that so many women come into the program like, I've got a food problem and I continually eat past full, and my problem is I continually eat past full. And again, these are, when we really dig into it, these are typically symptoms of what's actually the problem. 6, discover satisfaction. I love this one. A key component in metabolism and appetite regulation. What this step in intuitive eating is really about, it's about understanding how powerful pleasure is in our lives, how powerful it is to eat foods that you actually like, that you actually love, and how powerful it is to eat in an appealing environment, and about the fact that nutrition is about so much more than what you eat, right? It's about who you are when you eat. And I know that that's an abstract concept, and it's something I spend quite a bit of time talking about and focusing on, because pleasure is it's like a shortcut to our intuition. When we start to actually, especially as females, operate from a place of pleasure, a place we've been taught to fear and to not trust, because we're basically taught that if we're doing something that's pleasurable, it's going to make us fat, right? It's like guilty pleasures, sinful pleasures. Nothing's ever just pleasurable. And yet, having visited cultures that eat very pleasurably, they don't tend to suffer from the same overeating patterns that North Americans do, right? Because barf, like that's not when we go through that process of making peace with food, so many women will say, well, so that means if I want to eat Oreos, I can just eat Oreos whenever I want to eat Oreos. And it's just like this totally crazy thing. But the answer is yes. Because what you will find is when you make peace with food and you're able to actually listen to your body, it is not that pleasurable to only eat Oreos all day. Even if they taste good, even if you like them, it's not that pleasurable, right? And so I'm not talking about the pleasure of just checking out and throwing it all in because you've been in this really stressed out trying to restrict and maintain a diet kind of place. I'm talking about real pleasure that feels good while you're doing it and actually feels good afterwards as well. And so satisfaction is a really big piece of the puzzle. Next thing is coping with your emotions without using food. And I will say a big caveat here. I have a very different view on emotional eating than the intuitive eating women do. And so while yes, I want women to have other coping mechanisms, and I don't believe that we need to be like coping with all of our emotions using food. I have a slightly different view on it. Like my view is sort of that all eating is emotional to some extent. And how do we normalize emotional eating, which is something that all eaters do, whether they've struggled with their weight and food or not. You know, everyone eats emotionally sometimes. It's like we'd never eat birthday cake if we didn't eat emotionally sometimes. You know, we'd never eat a candy cane if we didn't eat emotionally. There's no like functional use for those foods. So what I talk more about is not how to cope with our emotions without food. I talk about how to emotionally eat, kind of like how to normalize emotional eating and let it be something that's really positive. And if at some point when you're tuned into your body, the way that you're using food to cope with life and emotions doesn't feel so good, then here's how to move on from it. So a little bit different. I approach that a little bit differently than Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich. 8, respect your body. So this is like that whole conversation, that really big, scary thing of starting to realize that we're genetically and biologically different, and that in the same way that if you had a size 8 foot, you wouldn't continually try to squeeze it into a size 6 shoe. You know, respecting your body is about understanding that you may not ever have a body that's supposed to be a size 6 or a size 8 even, right? And why that is, and how you can live healthfully and happily in your own body. Because this is not something you've ever been taught before, right? No one teaches you how to just be cool with your body. Like, we live in a world that capitalizes on the vulnerabilities we feel about our body. It's also about understanding that our bodies come in different shapes. And that learning to eat intuitively and listen to our bodies and treat our bodies with respect is body love. Like, that is body love. Body love is not, you know, thinking your body is perfect all the time. Body love is respecting your body enough to take care of her, even when you don't think she looks perfect, you know, which again, I often liken it to the way that I, you know, to my kids. It's right. It's like, I don't always think my kids are perfect. They're not always super well behaved. And yet I unconditionally care for them and respect them and take care of them because they're my kids and I love them. I love them. You know, they could like rob a store and I would still love those kids. And it's like, that's the feeling we want to start to conjure for our bodies, is this feeling of, you know, just because you don't like the way your body looks in jeans doesn't mean your body is wrong. It just means it's not behaving the way you want it to in the moment. Just because your body wants more sugar than you would like it to, or it wants to, you know, gain 5 pounds. You know, women's bodies wax and wane. We gain, we lose. It's a normal part of like, sort of like female life. It's just, that's your body. And how do we unconditionally respect and care for our bodies, even when our bodies aren't behaving the way we want, right? Thanks so much. I love the like hearts and the likes. It's so nice. It lets me know you're there, you're listening, you're into it, you're good. And again, feel free to leave questions at any point. Okay, so moving on from respecting your body. Number 9, exercise and feel the difference. For me, I often, at this stage of the game, or not at this stage of the game, but throughout the program, I would also say that a part of working with women for a long time is I don't actually follow these steps step by step. step when I do the Food Freedom Body Love method. Like there's sort of like interspersed. There's some of them that we take care of right at the beginning because we really need to. And quite frankly, we need something to really focus on as we shift our attention. But I often I don't do these in order. So I don't want to say at this stage of the game, but in the program, when we talk about exercise, I actually encourage us to change the word from exercise to movement, which I know is just a word change, but exercise tends to have all of these connotations of like running, and it's timed and it's competitive, and it's sort of gruesome and punishing, and that's not what we're talking about in intuitive eating. What we're talking about is the fact that animal bodies like to move, and that all we have to do is find the right kind of movement and explore that and let go of all the rules around what exercise should be and what it should look like until we are able to find something that we really enjoy and that fits into our life in a really beautiful way. And what it's really about is letting go of the all or nothing thinking, right? Well, if I can't, walk for an hour a day, there's no point. Of course there's a point, even if you're walking, if that's the thing you find you like, even if you're walking for 20 minutes 3 times a week, over the course of a lifetime, that's a lot more movement than if you've done nothing. And what this part of the program is about also is about recognizing that movement isn't just about weight. In fact, it's not really about weight at all. Movement is not a great way to lose weight or keep weight off. What it is really good at is connecting us to our bodies, getting us out of our heads and into our bodies. And there are about, I jokingly say 1 million benefits to exercise or movement that have nothing to do with weight. But there probably are. There probably are 1 million. I'm exaggerating, but I just feel like the benefits to movement when it's joyful and it's driven from inside of us because it makes us feel energized and happier and connected to our body. It's just, it's amazing. It's one of the best tools for getting in touch with who we are truly. And then lastly, gentle nutrition. So again, at the beginning of this process, we really throw all of the nutrition rules out the window because it's the only way to get in touch with ourselves and how our bodies feel. But it doesn't mean that I don't care. I'm a naturopath. It's not that I don't care about food or I don't believe that food affects us, because I do. It's just at this part of the program near the end, that's when we've started to really let go of all of these old rules and ideas that we have about weight. Then we can actually circle back and start to think about what does authentic health and nutrition look like for me? And how do I start to get that out on paper? What does that look like? And there's a process in the book. I have a slightly different process for it. I've got some different ideas around it. But it's a big part of the program. It's a big part of the online group program is at the end, starting to suss out for yourself what nutrition is going to look like for you going forward, right? It's I love this part of it. What's beauty going to look like for you going forward? What are the beliefs that you have around the diet culture we live in and weight? We have to revisit all of that and really get really clear on it at the end of the program. And so putting it all together, it's what's the end point? The end point is that you never have to diet again. You never have to buy fancy shakes or books or what, it's you become the expert on your body that you've always been, but you probably forgot how to be, the expert that you were when you were born. And you are able to make confident, easy food choices for yourself without needing input from others. You're able to be around people eventually, it takes a little bit of time, who are in diet culture and not be thrown off by them. You're able to go on holidays, right? Going on holiday and being at a resort doesn't really look that different from being at home. You can go on holidays without ruining your food plan. You can have an actual celebration, like a birthday or, Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it is without going off your plan. You can go to social events, parties. It's really this it's a skill set that never ends. It never stops giving to you. It's really amazing. And like I said, for those who are interested in this, my online group program is starting in about a week and a half. There is 4 more days to register. Registration closes on Monday the 15th. It is $350, which is a steal of a deal. 8 weeks. Every week there's a class where I deliver information like this in this format where I'm giving you information and tools. A little more interactive, I hope. And then once a week on a different day, there is a Q&A, which is like laser coaching. Like there's time for questions. Any woman who is struggling has the opportunity to ask me whatever it is she needs to let the group know how she's doing, where she's at. There's tons of supporting course material, homework, exercises, readings, not overwhelming. The whole goal is that all of this is very much like, take it into your life and use it and experiment with it. But it's amazing. And like I said, we dip into this stuff, but we also go so much deeper into the things that actually fuel us and motivate us and motivate our behaviors. So that's it. That's it for tonight. I just want to see some of these questions. A great analogy, kids and body. Yeah, I love that. Love it. My new motto for 2018 is to move more. I love it. I love it. I love it. Since discovering the concept of joyful movement, I've tried finding fun ways to get exercise, like bike rides with my kids, walking with my husband instead of locking myself in a room. Totally. Absolutely. I feel like social movement is such a good place to start when we're trying to find things that we love to do. So thank you all. Thank you for the women who have been here. So interactive, and I love the comments, and I love hearing about struggles, and I love because it's all important and we learn from it. So just thank you. Thank you so much for being here. If any of you are interested in the program, I so urge you to get registered in the next couple of days. It's going to be amazing. I truly hope to see everyone in there. Thank you so much.